Hello, 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 and welcome. This is our first forum slash panel conversation. We've got Mary, Laurel, Ann, and Elizabeth here. We may have some more dropping in. And welcome, ladies. I'm so glad you're all here.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever we are in the world.
Right. Good day to you. It's a beautiful day here in Pennsylvania.
Thank you for
Awesome.
having us.
Awesome. Glad that you're all here. I just wanted to I know most of you have already done your talks. What was something that kind of surprised you maybe about doing your talk or about some of the other talks? Let's see what we can have a conversation about.
Ooh, I'll go first if that's okay. I was just thinking, from a technical standpoint, I don't tend to be a critic too much of anything that I put out. I know that it lands how it lands. I was having so much fun that the time flew by, Charisse. Like I was like, where are we and how did we get, I always do enjoy learning, sharing my story, because I still believe, and I don't know how you ladies think about when you're sharing your story, you're sharing your ahas, you're sharing these parts of life. What I learn, I still learn more about me and how my experiences have been such a brilliant part of my life to feel how I feel now. But from my standpoint, it's like, boy, man, the time flew by and there was so much more of me that I wanted to give.
Oh, yeah, that resonates with me too. I mean, on so many levels. And I remember even when I was watching your talk about how the storytelling is such an important aspect. And I really swear, I've been saying for a couple of years, I really think that storytelling in a way is kind of the new currency or a new currency, right? Because especially with AI doesn't really know how to tell a good story. Because you can tell that it's just devoid of all human soul, right? There's just something about it. Like, as someone who has to grade things on an occasional basis, I see that. Oh, I'm like, there's nobody behind that. But when we learn how to narrate our own story in a way that shares, our own unique shape, and I totally agree. My life, when I look back on it, it seems like it's a bit of a chaotic mess, right? And yet each one of those weird little trajectories or side roads or whatever it was ended up being such an integral part of what I do now in ways that I could never even have imagined at the time.
Yeah, it's like every struggle, every challenge turns out for the greater good. I love sharing my story. I've been sharing my story for over 12 years. And it seems like every time I share my story, I come up with another aha or another way to kind of shift it and add more value next time that I share it with someone else. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I love about sharing my story, and how I can take those little ahas and be able to provide something valuable for whatever circumstance
For sure,
that other
for sure,
person
for
is going
sure.
through.
And it's funny because people think that stories are universal, but actually we hear them and we connect with them in the very specific stories. We don't connect to the very sort of bland, grand, general stories. We hear it in the details, and somehow magically we see ourselves mirrored in that very specific, very tiny detail,
Absolutely.
That's the art of storytelling, though, that not everybody is always ready to tell the story, because you're right. There are frequencies and vibrations in these stories. It's so fun.
It is. It is.
So fun.
And you never know what detail is the one that's going to catch someone. And they can listen to the same talk 20 times, right? And that one time, it clicks in their brain, and they're like, oh my word, I'm having a moving moment and I'm going to cry, and you hit me, and I'm just like, wow. And it all just kind of like floods in, and it's beautiful when that happens. It truly is.
I've had a few different people hear me share my story, different versions of it, different times, and they're like, Beth, every time I hear your story, even though it's a different version of the same thing, I get something different out of it every single time. So that's just the amazing part about being able to share a story and connect with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, hey? I'm just, it's one of my favorite things is really being able to tell that story and hear other people's stories. And then the other thing is obviously when people are sharing their journey, like their modalities a little bit, right? And they're like, oh, you know what's really cool? I'll show you this really neat thing.
Uh-oh, I think we're having a lag issue.
We've got some, somebody's got the sound doubled up. Jennifer, are you listening to it on your computer as well as on the phone? Hi, Jennifer, by the way. So,
Yeah, I'm trying here. I'm totally technically gone. Sorry, is that better? Can you hear me?
Mute it on the other device so that you can. Yeah.
Okay, I can't hear anybody, so all right.
Oh gosh.
Are we good?
You can't hear us? Might have to turn the volume up, maybe?
Is it still echoing?
No, it's not anymore.
Uh-uh.
You're good. You're good.
But you can hear us, right?
Yeah, I can hear everybody now.
Awesome.
Oh, good. Yay, it's working. Wonderful.
Not technologically challenged.
We're storytellers. We're not techies.
Right. And speaking of frequencies, sometimes the technology is operating at a frequency that maybe, is not really jiving with our frequency at the moment, right?
So much that. Absolutely.
Oh, there I am.
So,
There you are.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just really
right.
depends what we're up to, right? And what's the clearing?
How come everybody disappeared?
There was a clearing thing a couple of years ago that everybody used to say. Like when you were cutting something off and you're like, nope, that is not me. So Jennifer, you need to do the clearing statement for not liking technology. Technology is your friend and it's wonderful. I can't remember what it's, does anybody else remember what it is now? It was something like Bing Bang Bob or something. I don't remember.
I don't know.
I don't know. It was from like 2018.
I'd be curious though, like to hear from the listeners and the audience, like how are you guys receiving? How are you guys receiving all of these fun and new and lively stories? And how, are you feeling any ahas? I love to always get that. I know people don't like to leave comments, but hey, it's good to know. It's good to know and share with one another. I always say in my things, sharing is caring. And so, How about you ladies? Have you watched any of the other?
I haven't watched everything, but I have watched several. And I'm just, like I was saying earlier, I'm just so delighted at what a variety of perspectives there are and what a variety of entry points there are. It's like, everybody defines their spiritual modality just a little bit differently. It doesn't feel like there's any, one thing that feels like it's dominating the conversation. It's a really, people's different stories and all the various ways they've come to this sort of general desire to just help our communities elevate each other's spiritual consciousness to a higher level, right? I feel like that's the common denominator here, is that all of us here, whether you're attending or speaking, I feel like we're all part of the club that's like, oh, are we the club that no one ever wanted to be in high school? We're the ones that are actually dedicated to the collective ascension of human soul evolution. Oh, cool. Yay. I found my people.
Found my people. What did you speak on, Laura Lane?
Dreaming a new world into being. Yeah. And I sang on it too, because, right. Well, and when, because we're talking about frequency, right. And so I didn't realize that singing was going to be central to my medicine.
Mm.
I received a message when I was doing some ancestral healing, and I received a message from one of my ancestors that said, "Don't forget to sing." And I was like, "Of course, I mean, of course, I always sing, right? I've been singing my whole life." I thought it just meant like, just make sure you include singing in your ceremony as like a gesture of whatever, like I grew up in a church where we sang every Sunday, right? And so to hear that it was sort of a flippant, don't forget to sing. And then once I started doing shamanic energy medicine and I started singing in my sessions, my clients were like, "Oh, don't stop doing that. Do that all the time," because and it's us tapping into sound healing vibrations with our primary instrument, our voice, right? That is the primary instrument of healing. And I think people forget that.
Well, we all hold a frequency, and when we're willing to share it, it behooves people that aren't wanting to shift the consciousness to keep our mouths shut. Because you're right, our frequency, whether we like it or not, our frequency, what we say, whatever we say, beholds that. Oh, I was going to ask Jennifer what she spoke on, but Christine is finally on air, it looks like.
Yay!
Absolutely. Welcome, Christine. I know technology is such a fun thing, isn't it? We were just talking about that because Jennifer was having, and it's access consciousness. That was the thing it was years ago now that I was, it's like, oh, what are the clearing statements now? Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all nine, shorts, boys.
Whoa.
Full bads and beyonds. There you go.
And that's
it's
fun.
a whole clearing statement. It stands for a whole bunch of different things. But anyways, go look it up. It's
Jennifer, I'd love to, I haven't connected with you much through the group. I'd love to hear, did you speak already? And what did you speak on?
We just did.
Was it this morning?
It was, yeah. We just wrapped up just before. She was talking about 5D consciousness and the galactic wars and some of the other things that are going on in the world. So it was really a neat talk.
Ooh, I can't wait to tune into that.
And there she goes again. Yeah. And Elizabeth, your talk was just, I mean, yeah, it was beautiful.
What did you talk about, Elizabeth?
I basically shared my life experience and my story about what God has done throughout the last 24 years of my life to protect me, lead, and guide me, and how I was able to continue to move and be able to rise above and overcome every challenge, every struggle that I've ever faced, so that I could grow into the person that I am today in order to do His will, His plan, fulfill my purpose in my life, and help others.
You're a living miracle. I love that I am on the same platform with you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
yes.
you, Elizabeth. I love this. Living miracle.
I celebrate.
You know, we're all living miracles.
No big deal. She's just a living miracle. That's all.
Yeah, it's definitely, he's the one who can make the miracles happen, and there's no reason why I should be here today other than my purpose, His will. And I'm just feel so blessed that I have the wisdom and the knowledge, and I'm able to carry it out. I'm just thankful for that each and every day.
Absolutely. It's so cool to find our purpose, right? And that's, I think, what a lot of people, we go through that kind of, we have to hit that dark night of our soul, as Deb Sheet calls it, in order to move into our purpose. We have to hit that rock bottom part in order to realize what we're actually supposed to do. And then once we do realize it, then we're like, okay, so how do I do that, right? Then we go on the journey. Then we're like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do, but how do I do that? And that's where things like this forum are really important for people who are maybe in that, either in the dark night of the soul or just coming out of it and going like, okay, my entire world is rocked. What do I do now? Because, oh my God.
Yeah. And unfortunately, so many people, when they're in that place, they aren't willing to make the choice to keep going. That's when they get stuck. And that's my reason for being here, is to be able to help them to get unstuck and teach them the strategies that I developed so that they can learn how to rise above and overcome in the same way that I did.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
society doesn't really allow us to speak freely about having these alternative, experiences. And I work with healers that are trying to validate their beingness, um, because religion and other organizations have really made anything outside of your faith allowable. So many people hide, and that's why highly sensitive, empathic people, many of them have addictions too, because they have this greater gift, that they want to explore, find out, get connected to, and there's just no way to support them. So it's awesome that you're speaking that place for people to feel safe.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking, isn't it? Like, I just want all of us to feel like we matter and we can participate in society. And I find it so sad when some people just don't feel like they matter enough. They just don't feel like they can have that voice. It just, that guts me a little bit.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that hits home for me, because there was so much early on in the first decade in my recovery that I felt worthless. I felt like I couldn't be loved. I was ugly. And I didn't see any of my inner beauty, but I had to grow into that person. Now I'm confident in it and I see it so clearly. And that's how other people see me too, because God has made a way to get me to where I need to be. So
Absolutely.
Yay,
Energy
yay
always,
for you!
absolutely. Energy always finds a way, right? Like, it always finds a way, no matter what we're doing, it finds a way. I like to say, if you're sliding towards your dark night of the soul, don't stop it and make it go slower, because the universe will use a 2x4 or a car accident, or it'll do the most horrible things to you if you're not paying attention. You need to let it happen.
Yeah, I was thinking about that whole idea of excuse me, of stuckness, and then what we do to get out of the stuckness. And I was also just, also trying to take a macro look, because if I'm stuck in the stuckness, it's really hard to take a macro look. But when we take that macro look, we can see that it might feel like we're wallowing in it at first, but as long as there's motion and there's that sort of upward cycle where you're just gently starting to release the baggage and the stagnant energy and all that things, it really doesn't actually take that much energy to get it started. But it does require, a bit of constant care and tending. And then when you start taking that higher perspective and you see, pardon my French, holy shit, this all happened in the last 12 months? Like, even though 12 months ago I was so impatient and I wanted all the change right now, actually, maybe I didn't want all that change right now. Maybe I'm really grateful for the pace that it's going at right this minute,
Absolutely.
One of the things I struggled a lot with was the persecution factor, because I've lived really close to my family, and I live in a small town that is kind of not a spiritual town. And it's all the people I grew up with that have a perception of me in a certain way. And here I'm coming out and doing this kind of work. And then I come from a town as well where I've talked about my grandmother having that mental illness in the family. So she's talking to things and I'm talking to things that others aren't seeing. So a lot of persecution in that regard. And then you're starting to come out and get your message so that other people can find their way to you. It's incredible how many times I put out, some sort of message about a relationship or about how to navigate something in the world. And then I get all these phone calls and messages like, are you okay? Are you getting a divorce? Like, what's going on? And it's like, no. It's what I do for a living.
surprise.
Wasn't, and really that, and then also people talking they reveal a lot of intimate stuff to me. So I treasure and honor that. And I don't want to share too much with people either. Right. Cause it's not my story to tell. Right. So yeah, it's been an interesting challenge to be in that. And it's been really constantly pushing against these people that, this feeling of go back to what you were, go back to keeping it private, go back to not talking about it, go back to like working your regular 9 to 5 job, shuffling papers or whatever it was. Don't talk this. And so that was huge. And I still run into that.
Absolutely. And I find it's interesting when you're on your spiritual journey, you realize that a lot of the voices not everybody hears voices, but a lot of the people who are maybe diagnosed as schizophrenic, maybe they just had an entity that was trying to talk to them. And, if they hadn't been so terrified of it, they probably wouldn't have then attracted the negative entities that yammer in their ears and tell them all the horrible things. And they might have had a much easier experience just of life, right? Like, yeah, it's so...
the conditioning, about society is to really keep us separate, right?
Yeah.
It's to keep us disconnected and not have the wisdom and the knowledge of community. Because in cultures where you have elders and, I guess the going population, in the sense that they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, right? Like they're living, and then you have little ones. Like I've just noticed that there's just so much more space for people to be fully who they are without judgments or being outcasted. And I really feel like in America, the frequency of fear, the frequency of other, you're the other, you're not like me, you're different. Therefore, I can't even see who you are. I can't see that underneath your skin, whatever color your skin is, that you bleed the same. You have the same bone structure, the same organs. The lack of unity is the thing that is the...
It's funny how you step out of your comfort zone to become more comfortable in who you are. You disrupt everybody else's comfort zone and they get upset because they didn't choose to change. They're having the reactive change, right? Yes. And so learning how to manage that. And one of the things I know that irritated me a lot in my early years was how many people jumped into spirituality and divorced. And I was always like, well, that's not exactly fair, because you decided to change. You went and took the course, and then you expected to come home and have him or her know what you just learned and evolve, and they didn't set out to change. So you got to give them a little time, like identifying when it's no longer working and when it's actually they're having reactive change versus...
I kind of like how you bring that up, because that's a part of my story, Jennifer, is when I decided to choose my heart. 2 years later, my 25-year relationship decided, but I just kept choosing my heart. But for those that are out there listening, because I don't want to forget about those that might be tuning in live, I think what you're hearing here really is this big invitation for radical self-acceptance.
Yes.
Yep. And we can get to that place for ourselves.
It's self-acceptance, but it's also acceptance of those around you. Like, it's okay if they have a complete meltdown because you went out of your comfort zone. That's okay. Well, they can have that meltdown. It's not about you. It's not about putting you back in the box. It's about them having a reaction to change because they're being forced to change. They have to accept you in a new way.
I believe when we're the very example of that, that is truly what will show up in our reality. I talked about it on my talk. Yes. It's being a loving witness to yourself. Yeah. And I will only see other loving witnesses in front of me if I, in fact, am being that loving witness for myself. But I just love that's for anybody that, again, that just like jumps in and out to listening. It's like radical self-acceptance is such a big invitation from this forum. Just listening to each of you is how can we? But that was my story, Jennifer. Like 2 years later, I finally chose me And it was like all these things had to shift and shuffle. So essentially
And the
it
law
was
of
like
relativity.
you chose your spirit and then you ended up divorced. And so I think a lot of people find themselves there. That wasn't my choice. It wasn't I didn't think that I was choosing that, but as you said, Elizabeth, as a living miracle, I'm all in. I sacrifice every breath that I have for the good of the whole. By first choosing to be the good of the whole. It's
There's a law of relativity in there, right? Like you sound like you were on this path where it was sort of a set path, and you and your husband had been going through 25 years together on a set path, and then all of a sudden you had this like kaboom, aha, oh my gosh, world changed, and your poor hubby's going, we didn't sign up for that.
Right? You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
And the more radical you awake and the more radical you change, the more there's this law of relativity, because you went and flew over here and he's still on that, he's got to come over.
Such
right?
a blessing, such a blessing. Yeah. Like I got to experience that. I didn't have to, or I'm not should. I got to, because you were saying something, Cerise, like we get to experience these things. Yeah. We get to go down to the bottom, and we get an invitation, a new chance to build ourselves the way that feels aligned. Yes. We get to do these things, but yes, we both got to choose. We had to start over, which was kind of super cool for me, because I was 17 when we got married. I think he was 19. So it was super cool. I'm not condoning divorce. I'm not condoning anything other than be a loving witness to yourself.
It's a constant change. And like my story, I stayed with my husband. My husband and I were 27 years. Right.
Oh, congratulations.
So has, like I always say, there are moments where, like, not only do you want to leave, you want to freaking run the other way. Or you want to really off the cliff, like, and they want the same with you, and to be able to manage this,
because we always have to be careful. If we run away, we have to be very careful that we're not just running to the same thing in a different face.
That's right. Yeah. So him and I working it through together has been really an interesting challenge for both of us. And I remember the first time on my journey, my husband and I are in a room, we were talking, and I looked at him and I went, oh my gosh, like I'm used to me leveling up and waiting for him to catch up. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, you went and leveled up without me. And it was my turn to dial in and go, oh, I have some things to deal with here. Like
I just wanted to interject something when you said you get to build yourself. You know, you're building yourself up. I would really say something like you're actually unfolding into who you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Remember.
Because I think with social conditioning, you know, we take in all these layers of what society says. And as a little kid, this is part of my talk, but you know, as a little kid somewhere in your life, you were magic. When you're a child, you're of magic, and you are the expression of God coming through you all the time, which people are always trying to contain you. And then one day you were speaking your truth, and someone came to you and said, "That's not the truth. This is what it looks like." And it was an adult, it was a parent, a grandparent, a church teacher, somebody. And at that moment, we gave it away. And we started looking outside of ourselves for outside validation. And we were constantly looking and searching and seeking for that feeling of resonance that we had when we were little. And so over the years, we just it keeps layering and layering. And then one day you're like, oh my God, I'm suffocating. What the heck? And something breaks open. And so what I speak about is Ayurveda, understanding your dosha constitution. When you have the keys of that knowledge and that wisdom, you have an access point to your divinity, and you get to like shine in that light. And so when you said building up, I'm like, no, it feels like it's a breaking away, you know,
kind of like a remembering. Like from my perspective, it's a remembering. I get to remember who I really am. Yeah. For me, I live as my 8-year-old child, so I completely connected. Like, there I am, just in freedom. But yes, we always have the invitation to create our deepest desire. And that deepest desire is a remembrance of what our soul, I believe, our soul came here. But you're right, it can be an unfolding. I got a grid 3-4 years ago from a lady, and that's what it was called, the ever unfolding. And it's this beautiful triangle. I'll go get it in a second. It's the most beautiful thing, just because I'm saying about it. But yeah, we get to remember, we get to unfold, we get to, and that's where I always like, because people are like, I have to, or I should have. No, we get to celebrate it. We get to do this. We get to live as a human.
That's the distinction. So different.
That's the distinction in spiritual counseling versus therapy, right? Like in therapy, we hash out our past. We talk about all the drama, the trauma, all that stuff, right? But in spiritual counseling, it's you get to look at that situation and find out the layer, the lesson, the aha. Right. And that's why when people ask me, well, what's the difference between therapy and spiritual counseling? It's like, well, in spiritual counseling, you don't get to hash over your owies. What you get to do is understand why that lesson came to you and where are you going to step into that in the future, right? To gain more buoyancy.
Who wants to be activated to the unfolding? I'll show it to you. Do you want to see it?
Absolutely.
It's the most beautiful thing.
Yes, it's a whole other game.
Oh.
Very pretty.
Oh.
That's so cool.
I love that.
I love it.
Where did you get that?
Her name, there's kind of a story behind it. Her name is Susanna Bram, but she sent the stuff to me and we were supposed to continue on. I think she was in Australia and I don't know. She disappeared, but I have one here and I have one in New Orleans because I have 2 houses. And she ended up sending me more than I thought. So I got the white one and she sent me a black one. So it's like I have a new moon grid and the unfolding, same design. But isn't that pretty? I don't know why I wanted to share it. I've
really cool.
It before, but Christine, you said unfolding, and it was like, yes,
that is totally an unfolding. That is gorgeous.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Portal look to it.
Yeah.
Like blow it up, put it on the wall, and just meditate into it for 20 minutes and see.
You know what I've been doing? One of the things I mentioned maybe on my talk was I write on receipts sometimes or on the numbers and I'm like, thank you for reimbursing me 10 times, 11 times. And so I've been putting all those receipts on the ever unfolding, like they just, so they can keep unfloating and multiplying themselves.
I like that.
I like that too.
I did that. I've got a money list going right now that I'm going to do. I was invited to go sit with the trees today and like color a picture. This is my child, Christine, like color a picture of this offer and put the amounts and put the people and put the lines in. And it's just been, and that's my child. And the more that I feel like I step into that zone of creating and from that perspective, the easier the things unfold. Because there's a softness, there's a gentleness that unfolds with me being, playing.
Well, it's the somatic embodiment of your connection to God or to source or however you identify that. But it's, one of my teachings is to give people the actual feeling of what divinity feels inside of you. Like you can access it at any moment. So it's really about imbuing the energetic into your chakras and then just having it resonate. And then that's your intuitive wisdom when you're in your life where things feel. So, sometimes it feels one way or another, but we were never taught like that's a good feeling or that's a bad feeling. So it's about, when things are in contraction, that's not the path you want to go. But so much of the time, people outside of us say, "No, that's where you want to go." That's how. That's no pain, no gain. Instead of feeling that big feeling, that sort of, that feeling you get in nature when you're just in the awness of it, like like your heart just sinks in your body and everything's happy and jubilant. That's the feeling that guides you. That's where you're supposed to go. That's the path.
Joy. What brings you the joy?
Right.
So something I've discovered was patience is not my virtue. I'm not good at patience. I always wanted everything here and now. but I wasn't ready for it. I had to grow into the person I needed to be so that I could fully receive it.
Right.
The funny thing is, the last 24 years, now I am finally to that point, the last probably 7, 8, 9 years, where as I am stepping out and continuing to do what God has called me to do, I am attracting everything I need from the people to get me where I need to be so that I can fully fulfill it.
Yep.
And now I am attracting the people that I'm supposed to help. And that is just, that's the biggest reward.
Absolutely.
I often say I'm still pinching myself because my life feels like a dream. It doesn't feel possible that I am finally where I am now. And I'm just eternally grateful for that.
And that's the mantra, right? That's the mantra. My life feels like a dream. Like that's how we were all supposed to come in this physical form and have that life of joy and ease and flow and grace, and we just have made it so hard on ourselves.
How about we
Well, and the other thing, the other thing I think it's important to remember about, it's spiritual counseling, but it is also healing, right? And so our healing process is always a layered process.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it might feel like, oh my God, am I really facing this stupid problem again? But then it's important to pause and go, how does it feel though? Does it feel as bad as it did the last time? It might not feel as bad this time. I might have a better handle on it right now. And then celebrate whatever that is, right? Because it probably means you're on the right track. It's occasionally going to get snarly now and then, but just keep your head up, right?
It's funny when that same lesson comes up for me again. Like I'll go, oh, there it is again.
Right.
What was it that I didn't get the last time? Or what is it that I realized since the last time? Or is it a boundary thing that I need to know about? Is I being tested by source again to go, am I going to go blindly down that path? Or am I going to be conscious and aware and make a different choice? So,
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's
I always just ask, what are you here to show me? What are you here to show me?
That's what I will tell people. It's like, okay, you're facing challenges that you don't know how to get through. That is one of the things that has always let me know that I'm on the right path. I'm facing challenges. That's just the enemy trying to stop me. Let him succeed. God's going to lead me and he's going to succeed through me.
Well, it's just showing you resistance in your body. That's all that it's showing you. Still have resistance in here. And if you want to live the dream, or if you want to be in the reality that you are a living, breathing human that deserves everything you desire, you have to soften. And experience will show up and remind you where you're not soft.
It was interesting in my talk because my intention when I went into it is I wanted to explain why we're in so much aches and pains, and it's really that spiritual growth. We're so much spiritual growth, but we forgot the action behind it. Right? So we're not showing up. But Spirit just was a whole different galactic story that came out. Okay, we're going there. So I did throw it in at the end, but apparently we needed a different story today.
Funny how that works sometimes. The universe is just like, no, that is not the thing. You thought that was the thing, but it's not the thing.
But Therese, that's the beauty of this whole forum is that most of the time when I'm talking publicly, I am talking to people who aren't ready to hear what that galactic story is. They're not ready to really understand themselves as that universal being that they are, right? So I'm always kind of in that gentle step of trying to move them forward in the initial steps. And so this, because everybody, I'm like, well, they're all starseeds in here. They're ready to hear it, right? And that's what it was like. Here it is. I've been wondering what you're
I'm just going to dump and it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
And that's where the coaching, it's not about, it's about the action, right?
Absolutely.
It's about being that divine creator. It's like you're step into it.
And I think it's one of the things that as the speakers in here all embody this really, really well, is that when you're in vibration with the life path that you're supposed to be on. It feels really light. It feels really airy. It feels really joy filled. When you're not, you tend to have like 5 emotions, and you circle back through the exact same experiences over and over and over again. You know, you're happy, mad, sad, glad, bad, and that's it. You don't know any of the other nuances because you're so busy existing that you're forgetting to thrive. And that's one of the things that I think this is really going to help a lot of people to really get to that next level, because we are activating you, not just with the words that we're speaking, but also with our energetics, right? Like we are vibing with every single person in the community and being like, hey, come hang out with us up here. It's pretty fun. We got some energy going off here. Ooh, feel it.
I was just going like this with the whole thing because the emotional cycle that you get stuck in, right? That's your ego keeping you in that comfort zone, keeping you in that back door, right? So we jump into spirituality, and most star seeds are pretty high vibrational movers. Like we manifest quickly. Business world tells you to put in these plans for long term. No, you're going to get a response back quickly.
You got 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes, and then we're moving on, right? Let's go.
Because as soon as you activate it, the next thing gets activated, and you're like, it's a
People
fucking
goes into this panic, and all of a sudden, it uses every tool in the book to cycle you back through those emotions that you're talking about, and to call you back into that. And so you have to push through. Like, it's okay, ego. Like, it's okay. You can throw your little fit. I'm going. Until the point that your ego finally goes, all right, fine, she's not giving up, I'm going forward, right? But so many people give up in that first chunk of time. They get excited, and then the ego, and then they crash, and they go, no, the world's against me, and they go.
Well, I mean, the thing about your ego, that the way that it's constructed is to keep you in life, right? Like when people say about annihilating your ego, the ego doesn't want to be annihilated. And in fact, it's gotten you up into this point into your life. So it feels like it's really serving you. And yeah, it is serving you. But
sort of.
It is. Absolutely.
But it's the conversation that keeps you in the construct of the 3D world. Yeah. Right? It's the placeholder, the bridge that gets you to live in this life. And when the ego doesn't want to be annihilated, so it's constantly going to try and reinforce it. So, what is the tool that gets us to saying it's okay, you get to exist also, and I still have this energetic evolution that is going to.
I agree, Christine. Yep. Like we have to embody all the parts of this experience and all the parts of the experience.
Yep.
I have 2 invitations, not to go off kilter here. I don't know. They just want to come through. Learning, part of it was about what you were talking about. I used to schedule pity parties, okay? And one thing that and this was like, I'm going to schedule a pity party. It's 15 minutes. When the buzzer goes off, get up and go dance, go shake, go do something. Yeah. But one thing that I wanted to reflect with my daughter, because I'm a mother of 2. They're young adults now, 21 and 18 this month. But I had that experience, and I wanted to share this with maybe some of the mothers. It's really 2 invitations for the mothers. When my daughter was 16, and I don't know why I'm talking to the mothers, I just am just listening. She did that. She said, I want to move in with my dad full time. And I had just finished teaching yoga. Like I was at my high open state, if anybody's ever taught yoga. And I was like, oh my God. I was in like luxurious whatever. And I just lost my mind, like completely got offended. 15 minutes. I felt the offense in my body. And I was like, and then I finally came to. It was only 15 minutes when my daughter said, I'm moving in with dad full time, that I realized, Mary, it's her experience. It has nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. She is choosing her first decision in her life. And if you stop her and create resistance around her choosing her first decision in her life, she'll never feel comfortable making another decision. Mm-hmm. The second part, so like schedule some pity parties. Don't attack people. Go through your stuff. Go through why you're offended by something. because nobody's ever acting out for you. It's not for you. I mean, you're special. We're all special. But they're usually showing you something that you need to work through, and the universe is showing you, or God is showing you through them. The second thing, and this, I don't know why this wants to come through, but for the moms out there, for women who have actually delivered, and for those of you that have, and I love you too, I love all of us, but remember what a miracle you are. You held a life inside your body.
Yeah.
So for those of you that feel like you can't move your boundaries or your barriers, or you're so feeling the word, I keep hearing the word stuck. We get to experience this life. Nothing's sticky about it. It's a phenomenal process. And that some of us, we actually create life within us. So nothing could be so bad as that we are miracles, living and breathing miracles. And I don't know what that was for, but I sat here at a stoplight in Sedona one day, and I sat in that. I mean, this wasn't but 2 years ago, and I was like, Mary, you made babies in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what kind of miracle you are? Do you understand what you're capable of, everyone?
And,
Well, I
and
mean,
you know what? I'm sorry. It's just this distinction of giving birth, being pregnant, the way that you just held it and how powerful it is. It's what our political discourse tries to shame it and make it a bad thing, right? But if every woman understood that they had that resonance, that place, we would just overtake the whole thing.
well, and I also earlier, Mary, you were talking about this.
We overtook the whole thing.
You didn't create alone.
You were talking about this softening, Mary, that I think for me personally really resonated, because as I'm sure there are other people who are also recovering workaholics in the room. And so for me, my journey seems to always be this really sort of delicate push and pull between the doubt and trust game that I often play with myself, right? Myself. See, I already know. I'm a Gemini, right? So there are many of us.
That completely.
That's
yes.
great.
Yes.
I don't even remember what I was saying. No, but it's the letting go. It's the letting go. And it's the trusting. I don't have to do everything.
Yes.
I don't even have to plan
Yes.
it that specifically. I just have to set my intention, take some action, and really trust that I'm being supported.
Yeah.
And that's when you're going to be met halfway, just like me, continuing to step out, accepting, letting go of what's holding you back. I've been met halfway every single time, provided for, protected, and have been able to get to where I am today because of that. And we all have it in us to get there.
I had a different experience of that than, universe sort of showing up. I had God leading me. I've always said that God has led me in my life. Yeah. I've had so many situations where I should have, not so many, but a few situations where I could have died, and literally felt like the hand of God assisting me, shifting me out of the way in a car accident. Yes. Just had a premonition when I was young, about going down a windy road and crashing into a car that was making a U-turn, in the middle of this very narrow road. And I just got through speaking it to the guy I was dating, and literally we came around the bend, and that's what happened. There was a car in the middle of the road making a U-turn on this windy road. And I just finished it, and he stomped on the brakes. So it's interesting. Like, I unknowingly, unwittingly was being told all these things all the time. And I didn't get it until I was like, probably in my late 20s, like, oh, you mean everybody's life isn't like this? I thought people, always had dreams and things got spoken to them and they could hear. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool,
I love that vision of the hand of God scooping us. I love it. I just saw it like the hand of God. I love that, Christine.
Well, I was, my husband died when I was 42 and my kids were 10 and 8. And I always felt like all the people that I dated, if they weren't good enough for me, like he and God would literally just go, whoop, bye. you're not good enough for her. And it literally has, saved me a few times. So yeah, I think of that in the same way.
Such a blessing to us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all for being here and for agreeing to speak here. It's been an absolute honor to host all of you. I just need to say that. And it's been wonderful meeting all of you and getting to know you too. So don't think you're all getting off the hook. You're all, permanent parts of my life now. Every single one of you, even the ones that aren't here. Awesome. So with that being said, I think we should probably wrap up because I've got one more chat after this one. I've got two more after this one. So thank you all for being here, and love and light and blessings to every single one of you that is watching this.
Yeah, thank you for hosting this forum, Cherise.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Cherise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.